Hi there, this is Chris Newmarker, Mass Device Editor-in-Chief. Uh, we're talking December, and this month, Medtronic achieved a significant regulatory milestone. After about a decade of effort, Medtronic achieved FDA clearance of Hugo for its first indication in the United States. And to talk more about Medtronic's journey with Hugo, I'm fortunate enough to have here Dr. James Porter, the Chief Medical Officer of Surgical Robotics at Medtronic. Dr. Porter, welcome to Device Talks Weekly.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Just looking at your history, most of your career, you were a surgeon. You've been a surgeon, you've been a doctor. Tell me a little bit how you ended up, going, from, being a medical practitioner to, moving, now into like working for, the world's largest medical device company. I mean, with Hugo. I mean, how'd you
Yeah.
get here?
Well, long journey, but it's all been technology focused for the most part. So I started with open surgery. This is about
Yeah.
30 years ago. So I've been in
Wow.
practice about 30 years. And then laparoscopy came to the forefront in urology in the 90s. Actually did a fellowship in Europe in laparoscopy, so I learned that technology. And then robotics in the early 2000s. So I was one of the early adopters of robotics. I've done over 5,000 robotic surgeries with the current robot and have been very interested in technology and improving technology from the very beginning. And what the robot and technology has allowed me to do is surgery with much less impact to the patient. So that's why I think we're seeing this growth in robotics.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you first meet Hugo? What was that like? What was the
Yeah. Yeah, I met Hugo in 2020 for the first time and saw, really great promise and potential, and started working with Medtronic as an advisor, and then, formally came on board as chief medical officer last year. I'm still, incidentally, still practicing, so I'm not completely out of surgery. I'm still
That's
practicing
great.
surgery, doing robotics, so I keep my hand still involved in the clinical side, but now helping Medtronic move Hugo forward.
It's fantastic. I mean, what was your first reaction about Hugo? I mean, I suspect like your experience up to that point had been with Da Vinci robots,
Right.
that's like kind of I mean, Intuitive has just really dominated that space for decades. They pioneered it, starting in the 1990s. But I mean, what struck you about Hugo when you first started working with the Hugo system?
Yeah, the form was different. It was very different. It was not a boom robot. It was a modular robot, and so each one of the arm carts controls an arm. So it's
Yeah.
got a little more variability, a little more flexibility, allows you to access the abdomen. So I was really excited about improved access with the modular robot. I also liked the console, the open console, and the console was very different than the immersive Da Vinci console, and could really see the benefit of being able to actually communicate with the team, see what's happening at the bedside. I wasn't in my own little world in the immersive console. And I also really, really liked the position that I could assume with the open console. With the immersive console, you're forward, you've got most of your head weight forward,
Yeah.
and and for me, that created a lot of problems. In fact, personally, after doing 5,000 operations, I was experiencing problems with that position. Ended up having neck surgery on my neck in 2022
Wow.
for that position, and now there's a growing literature on surgeons who are experiencing neck and back problems from that immersive forward position.
How does Hugo, achieve you being able to have that open console? Because I mean, I suspect the immersive idea is like it allows you just to be like right in there, seeing, like seeing exactly what you're doing laparoscopically with those tools, right? So how does Hugo, I guess kind of get around that and kind of achieve you being able to have this o open view?
Yeah. So not unlike you're looking at your computer screen, you can see things on your computer screen, and that's what Hugo looks like. It's a computer screen, but you wear 3D glasses to give you depth. Obviously, when you're looking at a computer screen, you're looking at things in 2D. For
Yeah.
surgery, for robotic surgery, you need 3D. And so Hugo has 3D glasses, which allow you to look at the screen. But because you're not looking into a viewfinder, you can stay upright. You can support the weight of your head over your body, and of course, and then you get rid of all those neck and back issues.
So yeah, that's great. So I mean, it's basically it's it's good news that you don't get to like interact as much with people on the orthopedic side of your profession, like by using
Right.
a Hugo console more. So, I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of as you started working more with Medtronic and then eventually like actually working with them, working for them. I mean, how are you? What kind of insights were you able to provide? Medtronic, to further improve Hugo I mean, because I see that a lot in MedTech product development that, people, you have like engineers and, technologists who have like these like really, neat ideas, but it's another thing to have all this innovation and whatnot and like figure out how to like properly apply it to, what physicians actually, need in the healthcare setting. I mean, how are you able to help Medtronic in that regard?
Yeah, so the way I was able to help is I was an experienced robotic surgeon, which allowed me to provide insights about robotics over time. And so that's a little different perspective. It's important to understand, though, that from the inception of Hugo, from the very beginning, from the very design,
Yeah,
clinicians were involved in the development. They were involved in giving advice. They're developed in identifying what the use cases were. And so this was the evolution of Hugo. What I allowed then was a more mature perspective on where robotics is in 2024 and what we need to do to be competitive in a market where a robot's been in place for 25 years.
right. I guess that is I mean, from that health provider standpoint, how does Medtronic, how can it be, competitive in that market? Because, like Intuitive obviously has, very established relationships at like hospitals across the United States. I mean, where do you see, Hugo, competing now in the United States?
Well, I see Hugo competing everywhere where soft tissue robots is being performed.
Yeah,
Hugo has the capability, and like I said, the access. So this modular platform
right.
allows surgeons to cover a larger area. And if you don't need to cover a larger area, it's versatile. So you don't need all the arms. Let's say you're just doing a surgery in one area, like a hernia or a prostatectomy. You don't necessarily need to have all the arms. You can limit that. So you're not bound by the constriction of a boom robot. You can do anything you'd like with Hugo. So I think that's what's going to make it competitive. It's a different form. I think surgeons are going to see this and they're going to see possibilities that they couldn't do currently with the boom robot.
Wow. So it sounds like there could be, how much potential could there be to get Hugos in the ambulatory surgery centers? Because that just doesn't seem like a place where you could have like this giant Da Vinci robot with arms would be like in a ambulatory surgery center space.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on. I think these are smaller arms. They are mobile. Surgery centers are smaller. You want to be able to use those rooms for other things. So having a room that's kind of dominated by a big boom robot is going to be it's going to be much better for an ambulatory surgery center to be able to move these arms in and out. So yeah, I think this is an area that we're definitely looking at.
Just looking at this whole development process, what were like kind of the major challenges that Medtronic had to achieve technologically to get here?
Yeah. Well, robotics is complicated. It's not easy. I mean, if it was simple, there would be 10 robots, and there's not.
Right.
But moving in space, being able to manipulate tissue in space is a challenge. And there's a lot of engineering that goes into these arms that figures out how these arms need to be positioned and then how they move when you're inside the abdomen. So just the sheer simple task of moving tissue in space is, was the big hurdle. And I think once you figure that out, then you can start adding on more and more features, and that's kind of been the evolution of Hugo.
How did Medtronic decide what to include and what not to include? Like, like putting together. For example, you were saying like kind of the immersive headset was something that, that, Intuitive's had with Da Vinci's, and you were like, no, we're fine, a screen with, 3D glasses will work great. What were some of the other major decisions made along the way?
Well, yeah, um, I think because there was a robot available, I think they started questioning, could we make it better from the very beginning? Could we
Yeah,
make different? Could we make it something that would appeal to maybe a different type of procedure? And so, if you're going to go out there and compete, if you bring in the same tool, that's going to be harder. But bring in a differentiated platform, and then I think it makes competition better. It makes it easier. So I think those were some of the decisions. Could we make the current robot smaller? Could we make the console better for surgeons? Because I think again, they went to surgeons, they asked them, what do you like about the immersive console? What don't you like about the immersive
right.
console? These were the decisions that they made based on the voice of the surgeons, and I think that's what's driven their platform and their innovation from the very beginning.
And you think like from a health provider perspective, like this having the arms, like, you could like position them in all kinds of different ways. Does not having it, so that isn't like a hurdle for a health provider. That's like one more complication for them. That's actually a benefit.
Yeah, it's a benefit. I think obviously, you have to become familiar with the technology in order to apply it. But there's obviously training that is very straightforward. And once you learn the differences, then the application is very straightforward.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, okay, so like I use a Mac. Like I've used a Mac for decades. If I at this point, if I go onto a Windows computer, Chris, go over here and try to do something on this for us really quick. Like I'm like, oh, it's something completely different for me. I mean, how do you ensure that a surgeon who's very used to using a Da Vinci doesn't have that effect as they go over to a Hugo? I mean, how do you ease the transition for them so they aren't like, you're moving me from Apple to Windows, or maybe you'd like it better if it's like going to Hugo is moving from Windows to Apple. But I mean, what? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I like your analogy. I think there's something there. So if you're on
Yeah,
a, if you're on a Mac and you want to write a document, you're in Word and you're doing it. Well, there's Word for PCs as well, right? So the end product is the same. What's the end product for robotics? Doing robotic surgery. So
yeah,
right now, we have robotic surgeons all over the world that know how to do robotic surgery. What we then do is train them how to use Hugo for that same application. So they're not learning everything new. They're
yeah.
learning how to take a different tool and do the same operation. That's exactly all they're learning. That's it. It's that simple.
That's great. And okay, and so Intuitive kind of like upped the ante last year, like saying, "Hey, now with our new generation, we've got force feedback." I mean, is that necessary? Because Hugo doesn't have that at this point. But
Right.
I mean, how necessary is that really to the surgeon community at this point?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying this because Hugo doesn't have it, but there's been 14 million surgeries done with Da Vinci without force feedback, and they've been done safely.
Yeah,
So I wondered about, what is force feedback going to bring to us? Um, there are haptics in robotics. They're not tactile haptics, but they're visual haptics. And so surgeons over time learn the tissue clues that tell you what you're doing to tissue, how hard you're pushing, is tissue firm, is it soft? These are all things that you gain over time. So personally, I don't see the benefit of haptics as yet, but we're early in a technology, and I never say never about a technology until we really see where it goes. So I think that's where haptics is right
yeah,
now.
yeah. And so, the first indication, urologic, why urology? Why was the decision to seek that as the first indication for Hugo?
Yeah. I think it's because urology really was the starting point for robotics. And I think Medtronic felt like, we needed to, try this with the surgeons who have the most experience. We wanted the combination of our robot, their experience to show that Hugo can be used. It can be used safely. It can be used effectively. So I think that's why we started with the most experienced group of surgeons, the urologists.
As you were getting into that process with FDA, I mean, any like requests from FDA that were any kind of insights on like requests from FDA that might have been a little more unique, or like oh, they're interested in I mean, what were some of the major things you had to prove around it, to get to this point?
Right. Well, I think the Euro trial we did, urology trial, 137 patients and three
Yeah,
different procedures. What the FDA asked us to prove, like they do with any device, is it safe? Is it effective? So those were our endpoints, and we showed the FDA that Hugo was both safe and effective in those patients. And so it was a standard ask. It was a
it's
lot of
pretty
work.
straightforward.
Yep, it was a lot of work to get to that ask,
Oh
but
yeah.
we did it, and we're very proud of where we are right now.
Well, what's next? I mean, I mean, we recently wrote about you, seeking an indication for, hysterectomies, or at least you're starting the clinical trial work on that. I mean, where would you like to see, Hugo branch next?
Yeah. So we've already completed another FDA trial for hernia. And so that's 193 procedures in hernia, both incisional and ventral and inguinal hernia. And very, very good effectiveness and safety in that trial. That data is currently being reviewed by the FDA. As you mentioned, we are in the middle of our GON trial, and
Yeah.
we're accruing patients, and we're seeing great results, great outcomes early on. And so the next is expanding our indications, expanding Hugo to other specialties beyond general surgery and GYN, and continuing to see how Hugo can be applied.
I thought you alluded to this a bit when you were kind of talking about the open design and how the arms move around, but I mean, I kind of heard you saying that you earlier on that you saw, Hugo potentially going into, areas of surgery the robotic surgery hasn't, been in before that much. I mean, where where any kind of clues on where that might be, like where it could go that could be, pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, I think we're starting to see, especially outside the United States, there's a broad experience of Hugo surgery outside the United States, and we've actually seen Hugo being applied quite differently, to be honest, in very exciting ways. So, I would say most all surgeries have been attempted robotically, but there's been limitations. And what we're seeing are the ability to address those limitations. And it has to do with really being able to cover a much larger area in the abdomen than you can with a standard boom robot because you're not constrained by accessing the patient from one point. So what we're seeing outside the United States, in Japan, in Western Europe, are surgeons putting Hugo in some very, very unique configurations that are actually taking those robotic procedures, facilitating them, making them better, and allowing them to do a more complete operation than they could with the standard robot.
Wow. So, I mean, any examples? I mean, what's like a procedure that you were just like, wow, that's
Sure.
amazing they're doing it this way. Like
Yeah.
what?
So removing the colon. So for example, if you have to
Yeah,
remove the left colon, you
yeah,
start up way in the top of the abdomen and you have to go all the way down into the pelvis. So that's covering the entire abdomen. That's extremely hard for the current robot to reach. But with Hugo, you can place the arms in different configurations and you can actually reach this area. So what we're seeing in colorectal surgery in particular
yeah.
is really an improvement in how they're doing it, decreasing the operative time, and really gaining better access to the entire abdomen.
Wow. And like at an open surgery, this would just be a
A
hugely
bigger
invasive.
incision, a huge incision, a big incision to do this. And
Yeah.
it's done open, but it's a big incision and it's a lot more recovery for the patient. And
Yeah.
so obviously the benefit of robotics is smaller incisions, faster healing, and better recovery.
So there's just like some really hard to reach places that a boom robot it would be a lot harder to get to. And you're seeing experimentation over in Europe, Japan, where they're like putting arms in configurations that are
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
that are unique to
Yeah.
get this done.
Yep. That's exactly what we're seeing. You can reach it with a boom robot, but you have to put additional port in usually and move the robot and do what's called redocking.
Wow.
With Hugo, you put it in the first time, ports are in place, no redocking, access the entire abdomen from the initial port configuration.
That's fantastic. I mean, at this point, like thing that you're seeing that's possible with surgical robotics? I mean, how would you, I mean, it's part of this whole, I mean, we hear the term minimally invasive surgery a lot. I mean, how would you define minimally invasive surgery at this point?
Yeah. Minimally invasive surgery is being able to access and perform, the same operations you would do open, but they're doing it through smaller incisions, so that's less impact to the patient. And it's not just the incisions, but every time you make a big incision, you have to see, and so that usually involves putting what's called a retractor device in place. That retractor puts tension, pressure on the abdominal wall. That creates pain. So because you have a scope in place, you can see. Because you have other instruments in place, you can manipulate tissue. So doing the same surgery, but doing it through smaller access. So minimally invasive surgery.
Is there is there anything, any type of surgery that you think will n never be done minimally invasively, that will always be open?
Uh, I
Or
used
is
to say,
everything possible? Is everything
yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is the things that we didn't think possible are now being attempted and done in many cases successfully. And a lot of that has to do with just expanding what the robot can do. And so what we're seeing is newer instrumentation applied to robots to allow surgeons to do more and more procedures that we couldn't imagine they could do in the past.
what kind of enabling technologies would you love to see to like get this advanced even more?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we currently have with Hugo, which I think is really improving what we do, is our digital platform, our digital ecosystem called Touch Surgery. And touch surgery allows surgeons to gain information about the operation, to understand what they're doing. It also allows us to put in advanced imaging on the platform so they have access to that during the operation. So 3D models gives surgeons better access. Also allows surgeons to communicate with each other. So we have a, um, a telementoring platform which allows two-way audio-video communication called Livestream, allows surgeons to communicate, to collaborate, to exchange ideas, and so you can advance surgery in that regard. So
Yeah.
our digital ecosystem is a very, I would say, mature offering that really, I think, sets Hugo apart from other robots.
Yeah, I know one of our Device Talks Boston show, one of our recent ones, my colleague Tom Salemi used the collaboration software on Hugo in front of an audience to help talk through the operation of a red bell pepper. So that was in London, like from Boston. So I mean I mean, so if you get that collaboration, and then I mean, we're hearing more about telerobotics. I mean, I mean, from your standpoint, how doable is that in the future too? That we could have, like perhaps like a surgeon even op using a Hugo to operate, on somebody like in another location.
Yeah. So a proof of concept has happened. It's already been proven. We're seeing examples, all over the world now, and we're seeing surgeons operate on patients, transcontinentally,
Right.
transglobally across oceans. We've seen incredible improvements in transmission speeds because this is really obviously you need to have a signal which is in line or in tune with what you're doing in real time. You can't have a huge lag or delay. So that problem has been essentially addressed. It's now just a matter of figuring out how to do this safely, how to make sure that we're not putting patients at risk who are undergoing telesurgery. And then I think, there's a lot of effort right now to make sure that we have, good regulatory view on what's happening with telesurgery. And I think Medtronic is involved in this process. I know I've been talking to groups about how we can move this forward.
And kind of the exciting idea is that you could have a surgeon who has a rare expertise who could jump in somewhere else in the world and
Yeah.
and assist with a surgery.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the first use case, actually. Probably not a surgeon operating on somebody just because it's been demonstrated, but could I help somebody? Could I, somebody's doing the surgery, in a place where they're present with the patient. Could I help them get through a problem, or could I use my expertise to help somebody move things forward? We've already done that. We've been doing that, and that we think is going to continue to be an important part of telesurgery.
Fantastic. What's next? I mean, what has you excited for the future?
What's next is smaller robots, robots that actually enter the body through natural orifice, robots that have multiple arms going through a single incision to make it even more minimally invasive. So instead of having 4 or 5 incisions, you now have one incision. Um, there are many, many robots that we're working on at Medtronic. They're going to give us capability that we just currently don't have.
That's fantastic. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have asked? I feel like we covered a lot of really great ground here today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why, the reason I joined Medtronic was I felt we needed another choice. And I think that's what Hugo is going to bring to not only to the surgeons in the US, but what it's already been brought to surgeons outside the United States. Choice, drives competition and competition drives innovation. So we are looking to improve robotics for patients by providing choice for our surgeons and our patients, and then improving robotics overall because of that.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Porter, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for coming on Device Talks Weekly.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.